Hello everyone, welcome back to New Breakpoint Season 3. My name is Michelle Sanford and I am the Developer Engagement Lead for Australia and New Zealand. If you are new to New Breakpoint, then it is a series for developers by developers where we endeavour to bring you the latest content with the most exciting guests. We're excited to have you here with us. You can register for all of our episodes, and if you join us at the time, the broadcast is the second Thursday of every month, and you can ask Q&A, and me and my guest will be there to answer questions during the chat. If you can't make it though, you should still register because you can watch the episode on demand afterwards. You can also check out our episodes on our YouTube channel and pick up the resources from our GitHub blog. Today, I am super excited about the guest that I have. He has been a Microsoft MVP for a really long time. He has been a Pluralsight author. He is currently writing a book. He has just surpassed 10,000 followers on YouTube. And he describes himself as a magician for Arcana, which is one of our Microsoft partners. So welcome to the episode, Lars Klint.
Thanks, Michelle. Geez, I forgot I did all that. Yeah, that's right.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what we are going to talk about today?
I do talk a lot about Azure. It's kind of, I've been doing that for a decade. So, not recently, but let's say in the last 4 or 5 years, there's some critters that have crept up sort of on my feeds here and there. And of course, I'm talking about llamas. So we're going to figure out how does llamas actually relate to IoT and cloud computing, because it might not be obvious. Probably isn't obvious, but we will. I promise. We might get there somehow. Now, I've got a few things planned we can talk about in terms of IoT, in terms of AI, in terms of llamas.
I cannot wait to hear about them. And if anyone else is following Lars on YouTube, you will have seen a whole bunch about the llamas on there. Why don't you go into a little bit more detail about how you started with them? Are they your llamas?
So I live on a farm in rural Victoria in Australia. So we have land. However, I'm a software developer. I work in IT. I have no idea to do anything about farming. I don't know what to do, right? So we have had neighbors offer various things, and one of them was, hey, would you like to have some llamas on your paddocks? I'm like, okay. Again, I don't know anything about llamas, so we did, and it was just more of a thing to keep the grass down. But what ended up happening is invariably there was something that happened in 2020. I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, we all work from home, and I started just taking pictures of llamas and putting them on the internet, and people went, "Ooh, yay, llamas!" And I thought, "Oh, okay, sure, we'll keep doing llamas." But it's sort of, being the nerd that I am, we had to take it one step further. So I created something called llamaCam.com.au. If you watch the recording or if you're here live, it may or may not work because I ran it off an old laptop, because that's how we hack things, right? So that kind of broke a bit, but I have plans on putting it back up again. But my idea was to have these llamas streamed. Why would you not stream your llamas? Because I put cameras up in my paddocks, because llamas. I think I didn't actually have a good reason other than I wanted to see the llamas, and then I could share them. So I had to figure out how to get. So there was a few constraints actually to get this whole thing done. One was I'm on a satellite connection. That's interesting to start with. At the time, I wasn't on Starlink, which I am now, which is much better. So I had limited data allowance. How much data can you use on streaming llamas when you also have to work from it, etc. I had to figure out how to get the llama feed into your living room, the internet. And then, of course, I needed to figure out how to make it interesting, not just, llamas. So there was a whole bunch of ideas. Some I have done, some I have planned, some I haven't done, that needed to be part of this journey. So how do you get llamas from your proprietary security cameras onto the internet. I didn't know, and that was part of why I did the project, because that curiosity that I love in people, especially developers and nerds and technologies, we like, ooh, I wonder how that thing works. Let me press those buttons. So I had that urge to figure out, how do I do this technically? And I ended up using Azure Media Services of all things, because I could have streamed it directly to YouTube, but for various reasons that becomes maybe a little bit flaky, because YouTube isn't really meant for like continuous streaming as such. So I thought, okay, well, I'll set up an Azure Media Service resource, which allows you to do many things, one of them being live streaming. And it's a resource you get that you can sort of continue to reference. So it doesn't actually change the resource. Whereas if you're the YouTube, you get different links. If you stop the stream, you get a new link next time, right? So it became a bit tricky. So I used the Azure Media Services as sort of the, let's say, lift and shift, because I didn't want to have people accessing everything here on the farm directly. Again, bandwidth would be a number one issue. And by doing that, I was then able to use OBS on that old laptop, my old Lenovo laptop. And then I would use the RTSP feed, so the real-time streaming protocol feed, from the cameras into OBS, and then OBS will then stream it to the Azure Media Services endpoint. And then that would actually go to a website that was hosted on Azure as well, with the live feed. Now, it was live for about 9 hours a day. Again, bandwidth, and there's not much fun looking at llamas in the dark. So there was, again, another sort of, how do I switch it on and off automatically? There was a whole bunch of challenges that made it really fun. But I combined llamas and Azure.
And how much did that cost? Is that an expensive endeavor to run?
Yes, it can be. Azure Media Services can be expensive if you kind of not know what you're doing, which I didn't. Luckily, I'm an Azure MVP, which means that Microsoft very generously allows me to use some Azure credits for stuff to test stuff like this. So I did. But it's probably not the best solution for your farm streaming service. But if you're doing like an event, or you have a larger sort of gathering of things and people and whatever, it's actually quite good. But I actually don't remember how much the cost was. It would have been some hundreds of dollars a month, the way I did it. Where obviously YouTube you can do for free, but you don't get a lot of the benefits. So it's sort of, you got to weigh up what you need, right, for your project. It made sense for me.
And when you thought about doing this project with llamas, had you already IoT'd a lot of other stuff in the house and farm, or was this the first thing?
Yeah, it's if anyone here has followed me on my YouTube journey, there's a lot of home/farm automation, and part of that is measuring water tank levels, switching tanks on and off so they feed into each other. There's a lot of lights. Obviously, I've put up outdoor lights everywhere that automate depending on a light sensor that I have. So if it suddenly goes dark during the day, it'll turn on as well and turn off on and off at night. I've automated my gate, so I can open my gate at the driveway from my phone, because why would you not? And there's a whole lot of them. For example, if you look at the lights behind me, little things like that. But I have a little IKEA switch right here, and I can just turn them off by clicking on that, right? So that's kind of neat. Little things like that just make things a lot easier. So I've spent a lot of time finessing these things, and we'll get to actually the AI part of what I intended to do with the llamas. I did some of it, but not all of it, but we can go through and have a look at what that is. I have done a lot of IoT things, and I have this test for IoT things. And I think if you go into this world of IoT or automation, there's a very simple test you can do. I call it the parent test, as in, if my mum can't go and switch on the lights and it works every time, I've failed. That kind of, like, what happens when you turn off the internet, those sort of things. Will things still function when you need them to? So we can get carried away as developers and technologists. We can absolutely get carried away and automate everything, but it only works when we're around, and that's a problem.
Well, it seems from, watching you and your YouTube journey, seeing some of your conference talks, what you tend to do is think about what would be a fun thing to do with my skills and what could I learn from that fun thing that I have done. Do you think that's a good way to increase your skills as a developer?
If it can be a bit brash, I think is the only way. Because if you don't enjoy what you do, it's going to get so much harder. And if you're learning a thing for the first time, like you have no experience, you have no skills to sort of use to sort of get through that drag. So the way I've approached, let's say teaching, but sharing knowledge, whether that's on YouTube or it's been through conference talks or it's been through blog posts or podcasts or like talking to you right now, is that if you can combine it with something that makes it somewhat entertaining, it's so much more palatable and you can consume it much easier and it actually sticks. And the same if you intend to learn something and you have a side project, well, pick something that either is going to benefit you, save you time, save you money, whatever, or something that you think is entertaining or it's fun to do, and you will do it much easier. So yeah, I think that's the only way to learn something, I think.
I wish there had been all of this years ago when I was at university, because yeah, the way I learned back then from books, there used to be these physical things called books. Well, I have some on the shelf there, which university students today, I presume, don't touch at all. I presume they're just doing everything from the internet. And you have so much choice because you can learn from a video, you can learn by doing, you can learn by going to a hackathon maybe. So much more choice than just the one textbook that we used to have in the olden days. And I think I would have been better for it if I could have just been playing with stuff.
I think the key here is that we have choice.
Yes.
Because no one learns in the same way. So we have people that learn through visual things. I'm quite visual. I like having, touching things and doing them. Some people like books and reading about the theory. Some people, as you said, hackathons are very good. They need the support of a team. Some people like audio. It's just there's so many different ways that we can learn. And I think all of them are valid. I don't think any one of them is better necessarily than the other. It depends on the learner, right? But yes, I am writing a book on Azure. Surprise. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. So it is almost there. We're getting there. But I'm not a fast writer and I get distracted like everybody else by shiny things. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey, but I'm doing it. I am getting it done. So we'll get there.
It is possible to buy Lars's book already, and you can get the chapters online as he is writing them, but you can't get the physical copy until the final thing is done.
It is an interesting journey, and the way that Manning does it with his early access program is quite interesting because you can actually influence it as a reader. You can comment on the book online as you read it and go, hey, why'd you do that? Or that's wrong, or there's a better way, or et cetera, et cetera. And I take all that on board. So we shape it as we go, which is interesting.
I'm really excited about all the choices that people have for learning today and the way I learn today. There's hackathons. I know I go to so many of those these days, and I just think if I had done those when I was younger, if I had not been afraid to do more of those as I got older, I would be a much better developer today. Learning from books was a real problem for me because there was one textbook, and if you couldn't afford the textbook, you needed to go to the library and there would be 5 textbooks to share amongst a whole class. And they taught you how to do things in one way. And I couldn't, if you couldn't follow the one way, then it was going to be very difficult for you. Whereas now what I see with learning on the internet, they will often show you 5 different ways to write the same piece of code. Copilot, GitHub Copilot, that I am loving at the moment, does that all the time. It will show me 10 pieces of code. And when I was initially using that, I would look for the one that was the code I would have written and then choose that. So I'm coding my code faster. But now what I look for is the code that looks cleaner, sharper, more efficient than my code. And I ask Copilot Chat to explain it to me. So it's making me a better developer and it's explaining stuff to me so I understand what we're doing. It's a whole new world that they have out there. But yeah, videos, YouTubes, Copilot, also learn by doing. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place to be coming up as a developer today. But speaking of showing us cool things, maybe you want to talk a little bit about AI and what you can.
I do. I thought I'd just mention, because I'm pretty sure that Michelle Mannering was on your show as well. And if anyone does hackathons, holy moly! So go check out that show as well, because yeah, I don't think I can keep up with that.
Yeah, Hackathon Queen Michelle Mannering was our first episode of season 3. So I think that's episode 14 in the one sheet when you register. Yeah, very cool.
Excellent. All right. So we're gonna go back to LlamaCam, if that's all right, and I'll explain a bit about kind of what I had in mind and why that might be awesome, and then we can take it from there. So let me just share my screen. So I've opened up the Azure portal here, which you may or may not be familiar with. I think, Michelle, you've seen it before, maybe.
Just 1 or 2 times.
Just 1 or 2 times. So there's many ways of using Azure, obviously. The portal is one way. It is the best way to explain things, I find, but it is not the most efficient way. So choose your poison. I would use the CLI normally. Other people use PowerShell. Some use SDKs. There's many ways. But in the portal here, I have my account. So here's you can see there's a Banning's Books DB. That's from my book. I actually have a company there called Banning Books, because that's funny, because it's not Manning. And they deal in banned underground literature in the tech world, because why not?
Is there dirty fan fiction about your life as an MVP?
I will not comment on that. I can neither confirm or deny. So in here, there's something called cognitive services. So if we search for cognitive, actually they're called Azure AI services now. Oh God, it changes all the time. Yes, they're called Azure AI services. I've been saying cognitive services for like 5 years, so apologies. Azure AI services, and there's a whole bunch of different ones.
I noticed that had changed.
No,
so,
it's
that's
it's move, and we keep up, right? So in here, there are a bunch of different services within the basically ML space, machine learning. We talk about AI. What we're really talking about in this case is machine learning. They're related. And in here, you can see there's an OpenAI account we can set up. There is a cognitive search, there's computer visions, etc. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can choose as an Azure AI service. And what these are, they're shortcuts. So if you don't want to learn about a million things in machine learning world, how everything is put together and how you train a model, etc., you can use these services because it's already set up for you. And I like that. It's a shortcut. I can go straight to the fun bit, for me anyway. So if you wanted, for example, I have done a couple of talks about the language service. So if you just view the language service here, there's a couple of services here, or resources that I've set up. One is called Global Sentiment, because part of the text of this language service is you can get sentiment analysis. So you feed in a piece of text or paragraph, it'll analyze it for sentiment. Is it positive? Is it negative? Which bits are positive? Which bits are negative? And of course, I analyzed a whole bunch of spam emails I got to figure out if spam really is that vicious and evil. Again, try and find some sort of angle that makes it a little bit more interesting, right? But the one I want to talk about specifically now is custom vision. And the custom vision, that's actually not here right now. Interesting. Why is that not here? Anyway, the custom vision is a way that you can use machine learning or AI to analyze your images. So if I go over here to the next tab, customvision.ai. But in here, I have a custom vision project set up. So customvision.ai is a Microsoft URL and site, but it's like the visual way to use your custom vision resources on Azure. So if I want to set up a new project, click new project, enter a name, etc., and you choose your whatever resource that you have. In this case, I have a LlamaCam cognitive service. There's a hint to what we're going to talk about. And you can use that resource to run your models and your experiments. And then there's a bunch of different selections here that you can choose differently if you want. If you know what domain, as in what category of images you're going to be talking about, then you can change these as well. And these are all different, they say domains, but they're actually different models. So I'm going to use the one I have already because that's a bit more interesting for llama cam. So when I did the llama cam project, people were like, oh, this is really cool, but there's no llamas because there's several acres of llamas and I can only cover so many of them with cameras. So, okay, well, how do I make that more appealing? How do I make that story, if you want, more appealing to the users? So I thought, well, why don't I use AI? What if I train a model to figure out if there's a llama in the image or not, and then use that positive recognition to then notify users that, hey, there's a llama now on the camera, and then you can click and you can go there. I was like, that seems like a good idea. So I didn't quite finish that project, but I went some of the way. So I'll explain to you how that would work.
So we're doing object detection with the llamas being the objects.
We're doing object detection, and the reason I want to show this is because it is so damn easy. Like I'm blown away how approachable and accessible AI has become. We're not just talking ChatGPT in terms of typing in text, but things like this that is bespoke to what I want to do. Like this is my project and the way I want to put things together. So I loaded up. Here's only 20 images. Some of them are going to be llamas. Some of them are not, because obviously there might be something else walk onto the paddock. It's unlikely it's going to look like a llama, but there might have been a horse, for example, or camel. But each of these images you then tag. So you say, okay, well, when you load the horse, you say that's not a llama. And then you go on, you say, well, that is a llama, and that one is a llama, etc. Right? So you train the model in this case. I'm telling it what is a llama or not. And then you click on the train button here, and you can do a quick training. It takes about an hour, or you can do advanced training. And then you can sort of set your budget and how accurate you want it to be. So if you had a ton of images, and there were llamas from all different angles and sizes and colors, etc., you can train this model more or less. But I'm going pretty simple here because it's actually working quite well.
When you said quick training takes about an hour, it wouldn't for 20 images, right? It would take a few minutes for 20 images.
Yes, that's true. It says estimated budget because you obviously pay for the training of this model. No, for 20 images, it took 5 or 6 minutes, I think. This has been a while since I did it, but something like that. But no, just expect up to an hour if you do a quick training.
If they've done the proper thing and they've loaded more than 100 images, well, actually loaded 1,000 images, then perhaps it would be an hour. But yeah, I do the same as you. I do 15 or 20 images each time, and it's really only a few minutes, and it doesn't cost me anything. I'm still using the free tier, I think, on that.
There's a free tier as well, so you can actually just do it. So once you've trained your model and you have all your images, so I have some of these pictures I took, like that one I haven't taken that picture, but these are from the actual camera. That's what it would look like. So I sort of mixed and matched it a bit. There's a zebra, there's a couple of horses, there's a couple of camels, things that are similar in appearance, height, legs, etc., that might come across. Then you make sure you also know what the negative is. And then you can get some performance metrics for this. How precise is it? How good is it at recalling? So the recall, I always have to read this. Out of the tags which should be predicted correctly, what percentage did your model correctly find? So if you're not happy with that number, you keep training them, supplying more images and improving your model, which is also why you get different iterations. You can say this was trained in 2020. It's been a while. I did do this during the before times or the during times. So once you're happy with what your model looks like and you've got enough images on your model, then you can do a quick test just to kind of figure out if it works. And you just enter an image URL. And this is where you come in, Michelle. So you're going to choose, if I just search for llama. Oh, no, I don't want to search for llama cam. We can look at that too because it's not working right now. But if I search for llama and I go to images, see, I've Googled it with Bing. Are you proud of me?
What else would you use? What else is there these days?
I have actually used Bing for quite a while, just because I refused to believe that Google was the only one that would work. And you can see I have many points. Look at all my points. Okay, you choose one of these llamas, and we'll see if it recognizes it correctly. Which one?
Well, Oh, the screaming one at the end with like his mouth wide open. Yes, that one.
We just copy the image address and we put it into the URL here. That's all you have to do. And it'll load the picture for you. And then you wait for it to do its prediction. You just got to upload the image, etc.
Because he could be a sheep, couldn't he? You can't see like that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
but see, 99.9%, right? And just to make sure, yeah. So let's just do something else that's not a llama. So we can do a horse. Just to make sure it works both ways. So you get to choose again.
Well, I guess that white one right in the middle with the clouds behind it.
Ooh, very nice. All right, we just do the same thing. We just copy the image address back over here. And we send that off. And it says 100% negative. That is not a llama. So, and this is just with 20 images, right? The one thing it doesn't work for, and I have to admit this, is alpacas. Because unless you have it next to a llama, they look almost identical.
Yeah, I can pick.
Yeah, and that's probably where you would go into having many, many more images and doing a more thorough training for it. But for my intents and purposes, it would work just fine. Now, so the next challenge I had, and this is where I got to, right? So I have my model. The next challenge I got to was, how do I actually use this model? How do I get images to it for it to predict against? I actually spoke to my friend Henk, which you know Henk Bullman from Microsoft as well, who knows everything about AI, it seems. And it turns out you can download these models locally. So I could run this model locally on my network, and I would never have to upload anything. And that would make it so much faster, because I was like, oh, do I have to upload like every 3 seconds? Or like, how often do I upload images? And you could just do it. You could take a snapshot from the cameras every, say, 5 minutes, whatever your cadence might be. And that would be it. And then I could use a simple webhook and just notify users through the browser. And that would be it. I just didn't get to that bit. I still want to do it.
So I have a session that I do called Has Your Puppy Joined the Dark Side? And that's because I have these little Shih Tzus who, in the darkness of the night, they might be mistaken for Ewoks. And you do want to know whether the creatures that are staring at you out of the darkness are Shih Tzus or Ewoks. because an Ewok could roast you over an open fire. And a Shih Tzu, the worst thing they could do is smother you to death when they try and sit on your face when you're sleeping. So I made a static web app where it would look at those and it would say Ewok or Shih Tzu, so that I would know whether I needed to, kill them or not. and yeah,
Did you see the puppy up cupcake? A puppy or muffin?
Yes, I do show those images as well in the talk. Yes, but yeah, you download the model. It's a TensorFlow thing that you download, and then you can put it into your into the code so that it's a progressive web app and it runs from wherever. But the model is there where you're going. It's not, it's not up in Azure.
And I think that's when a lot of developers I keep saying developers because I am one, so that's what I relate to, but technologists in general, if you hear AI, it's like, oh, it sounds scary, let me just use the thing. But it isn't. Right? There are shortcuts that let you get really, really effective use of AI really quickly.
I tell you the other thing that's super useful, where you were training with your 20 images first of all, and then you're manually labeling llama or not a llama. Once you have more than 15 images, you can in fact bulk upload the hundreds of images that you have from the farm cameras, and you can say, have at it yourself. Once it's done that initial 15 image training, it will make an attempt at doing the rest of them for you. And then you can just sort of sense check them. You can look through and see, has it correctly labeled them? So it saves you a massive amount of time when you want to go to production.
And I reckon that would work here because it's all green paddocks with white llamas or grey llamas or brown llamas, but they stand out. So it probably work really well.
Yeah, it would be, that would be really quick and easy. And then, then no danger between, is it a llama or is it one of your children?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we send him up in the paddock often. Yeah.
So, anything else you want to talk about around llamas and AI, or is there something else interesting you've been working on?
So because I now work for Arcana and we do a ton of AI things, it's become more prevalent. It's become more in my face, I think, all of the different things that you can do with AI. And something like OpenAI is actually quite interesting because, again, you don't have to train that model. If you choose to use the OpenAI, let's say ChatGPT kind of models, well, you choose them in an API. You choose to use whichever AI model you want, but there's basically only one endpoint to use with ChatGPT, and you pass up some properties and parameters, right? And again, as a developer, it just becomes so easy to use. And now the real question, I think, is not the technical side of how do I use OpenAI as an example, or whichever model you want to use. The real question is why, right? What am I actually going to solve using this technology? And I think we're starting to ask those questions. We've had like 6 months now of AI, we can do all the things. Oh, look at this funny picture, right? And that's where we always start, because we got to start somewhere. We got to learn somehow. But I think we're getting to a point now where what are the actual useful things we can do with this? And so a couple of the projects we have in Arcana is we're working with governments a lot, and they're using it for something like just ask a natural language question on the website and we will show you the right page you need to go to, because government websites are notoriously complicated. Try and go, as I have, going through immigration websites in Australia, right? Like, where do you even start? So using a natural, a large language model or natural language for doing that makes so much sense, because I'm trying to do this and I would like to solve this particular thing. Where are your resources? And normal search engines just don't do that. So that's just one example that we're doing right now, which is really, really exciting.
They try to do it. Those government websites have that search option, but the problem is that the people using them are not technologists. They are normal humans like your mum, like my mum. And when they're trying to put queries in natural language, it's, the website is not understanding what they want, and they're not understanding what the website is giving them. So it's that making it more human, making it more understandable, more expressive, without trying to be a human, but still, making it more humane, I guess.
Oh, very much, very much. And I think we're getting a little bit. There's often a few dystopian things that sort of creep in. You go, oh no, they're going to take over. I'm like, no, we're actually making the world better by doing a lot of these things. And as with any technology, you can use it for evil if you really want to. That's never that's never been any different. But the thing is that we are not, right? We are actively looking for ways that we can make everybody's world much better, and I think that's really exciting. I mean, that to me is the big upside of all this. We got to learn how to use it. We got to learn how to live with it, sure. But in the end, I think we're going to have some services that we don't even know it's there. We just learn to communicate differently, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I think people are pretty interested in what other use cases there are, because as you say, most people, when OpenAI released and they could start using it on Azure, the first thing they thought of was, let's create our own version of ChatGPT, but for our enterprise. And, everyone has been doing that, but at the same time, those public models and those public services have been progressing to a point where you can purchase private versions and you can just implement what they've got, and you don't have to start from scratch each time. So what else? Yeah, is there anything else out there that's interesting that people can start thinking about?
Yeah, there's so many things, right? It depends on who you talk to, because it's very much a contextual thing of how could this apply to me. And as technologists, you know this, I know this, we go, yeah, of course I'm going to use it. Like, I need to know what it does. But as an example, last week or the week before, at Arcana, we were doing a presentation to a group of people all over WA, all over Western Australia, that are into finding grants to support local community. So all of these different centres have people in them that part of their job, if not their entire job, and some of them are volunteers even, they search for grants from governments, from private organisations that can, say, build a new playground or can improve the disability services in the area or whatever it might be. And we were talking to them about how do you use these large language models and ChatGPT in particular to not only find the grants, that's a bit tricky, but how do you write these grant applications? And it's like, that makes perfect sense because it's a very specific knowledge that you need to make it appealing in your case. And it was quite interesting because this was a bunch of people that were definitely not in our space. They were very good at whatever, certain area they were in, but they were not. Some of them had never seen ChatGPT before. And it was just an eye opener. Like, there's so many possibilities we can do with this. And then to go completely the opposite end, a couple of months ago, I did a presentation to a large Australian bank. They were looking at how can we use OpenAI or large language models to both improve our services for customers. How do we use it to detect fraud earlier? And this was the most important thing for them. How do we make sure that we ensure everybody's privacy and don't suddenly muddle, like, how do we make sure you can't access someone else's data within this large language model, right? So there's all these different challenges, I guess, and things we can use this technology for. And every time I talk to a person from a different area, they have a different idea. So yeah, there are many.
When I was flying over here, I was watching the new episodes of Young Sheldon. And in one of those episodes, he comes up with the idea for creating a grant application database so that they could search for grants, locate them all. And I just wonder whether they saw that episode and they thought of the thing as a result of something they've seen on TV, or if it's all of these ideas are just surfacing now in the world because, people see the technology and they begin to think what they could do with it. So, I guess the real trick when you are thinking about building things is think about, what do I care about? What is important to me? What could I do? And then see whether you can apply that to some of the new technologies that are out there. Because previously you had to write every single line of code yourself, and today that is not the case anymore.
I do have this conversation too, and I find this interesting that people go, but as a developer, what am I going to do? It's just writing everything. But like, hang on. You use Stack Overflow, you copy code. What's different now? Like, it's just the next progression of this. So yeah, I spoke to a guy that he's actually set up different ChatGPT or OpenAI implementations that write code for him, and he feels like he's more of a senior developer. He keeps doing code reviews of what it's outputted. So our job is just going to change, as it has for 50 years. I don't think it's anything new that we're changing.
Yeah, we were talking about that the other night at a dinner. A senior developer that I know was saying that, he's worried that the code that juniors are submitting is just coming in unreviewed, basically, from Copilot or ChatGPT or one of these other tools. And when he's reviewing it, he's super conscious of that. And I said, but what is the difference really? When it was coming in from a junior developer, you were also super conscious of the fact that it was a junior developer and you needed to review it carefully. It shouldn't change because it's AI. It should be exactly the same. You review it as carefully as you did. And if you find that, your junior devs are just submitting code that they don't understand, then pick that up with them in the code reviews, just as you would have.
And I think tooling's going to evolve as well. So we'll have tools that say, "Oh, this was actually written by AI. You might want to double check it." But it'll all evolve to create a better product.
I ask it to comment my code verbosely, because even if it was code that I was writing myself, like a while after, when I haven't been writing in that code base for a while, I've forgotten what it was doing, and it will take me quite a while to sort of scan through it and figure it all out. Whereas if it's quite verbosely commented, I can scan it a lot quicker. So I definitely find that useful.
I spoke to a developer once, and his argument was that you need to write code as if a serial killer will read it 6 months from now or something like that, right? So that you have to make sure that the next developer, which might be yourself, can actually understand what you wrote. So yeah, I get that.
Thanks, Lars, for joining me today. That was fantastic. We're going to be sticking around for another 10 minutes. So if you want to ask any more questions, put them in the chat now and we will answer them. If you missed this episode or any previous episodes, you can find them by registering and you can watch the sessions on demand, or you can find them on our YouTube channel. And we also have our GitHub log, which will have access to all of the resources from this episode. Looking forward to see you next time. That was ridiculous.
You can do a pick up from that last bit.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.